so much. Thanks, guys. So kind. Thank you. Wow. Thank you, Rich. What a kind and generous introduction. So today I'm going to talk about sympathetic magic, how to get other people to believe in your vision by first believing in yourself. This is me as a little boy. The image is almost on the screen now. Do we see it on my iPad? Can you see it up there? Okay, great. So don't look at me, look at that. But this is a shameless plug for my new book called The Tom Sachs Guide, and I would say that all these images are in this book, and some of these ideas are, but I'm hoping that this talk can be a way of helping you understand how I did it so that you can see how you did it. And if you squint your eyes just a little bit, maybe there's a window into seeing how some of these methods could be applied to helping you build your world the way you want it to be. Because that's all I do. And maybe it's worth talking a little bit about what sympathetic magic is. It means a couple of things. One, it's the first order is proximity. Vanquish your enemy and devour their flesh and obtain their power. Or the sympathetic magic that I use is more like a voodoo doll, or build it, they will come, or the best example is an ex voto, where you build a model of your ailing arm and you bring it to your religious practitioner and you say, or your religious practitioner helps you to believe that you might heal, because if you believe you might heal, you might heal. If you believe that you won't heal, you will not heal, you will die. And might is so much better than won't. Professional baseball players, the best ones, hit the ball 1 out of 4 times, so they're mostly losers, but they're just losers less than the next guy, and that's what makes them the greatest. If they hit it 1 out of 5 times, they're in the minor leagues, and they've hit it 3 out of 5 times, they're the greatest of all time. So still, you're mostly a loser, and I think one of the key strategies that I've used is learning to live with deep and consistent disappointment and failure. And through that, and once you kind of come to terms with that, you can really achieve a lot. So this little guy made this sculpture for his dad because his dad really wanted a Nikon FM2, but he had to settle for an Olympus OM1. And I made that sculpture as like a gift out of love. And I didn't know that this strategy of sympathetic magic, that I was in fact employing it as a 8-year-old boy, but it became something much more consistent. And later in life, my dad gifted me the Olympus OM1, and I bought a Nikon FM2, and I became a professional artist, not photographer, but sculpture, and photography is an ongoing, important part of my process. In fact, today, if you go to the I.S.R.U app, you can see Mario Sorrenti teaches Tom Sachs photography, and you can follow along with us and do the challenge. Is anyone doing I.S.R.U in here? There's some hands? Oh, so many, excellent. Got stickers for you. When I left school, I was really into Piet Mondrian, the Dutch de Stijl artist. And I really wanted to get this painting, and I realized that I'd have to go down to Wall Street and organize millions of dollars and dedicate my life to the obsession of money in order to afford this. And so instead, I didn't feel like that was an authentic use of my time. I went to the Museum of Modern Art and I studied this painting. I made a model of it, not in paint, but in duct tape. This is our gaffer's tape. I got them to take it off the wall and look at the back, and I realized that I, in fact, spent more time with Broadway Boogie Woogie, the name of this painting, than Eli Broad, the man who sold billions of dollars in real estate to get the money together to buy this painting, to enjoy it, to give it to the Museum of Modern Art. So in a way, I had a greater sense of ownership and possession of the ideas in this art than the guy who actually physically owned it. And I think this kind of commitment to ideas being important over the physicality of it is a theme that keeps running through the things that I'm doing. I've made my own bootleg space programs that we'll talk about, and I spent 30 years living near Canal Street in New York City, where you can buy fake Gucci sunglasses, and I was really impressed that when you leave your $500 sunglasses at a restaurant and you drive away, you go back for them. If you get the $5 ones, you leave them behind, and then you have to figure out, do you own those sunglasses or do they own you? And there's virtue to a $5 crappy pair of sunglasses. They're still Gucci, they're just not authorized. And it's an important distinction to make. The Kelly bag is the most coveted handbag in the world. I know some of you are going to argue it's all about the Birkin, but I'm sticking to my opinions. And there's a rule that you don't get a Kelly bag before you're 40, because where are you going to go from that? Like a crocodile Kelly bag? There's nothing beyond that. And it's the same with a Porsche 911. Like, you shouldn't get that before you're 40. Otherwise, because there's nothing beyond that. Sure, you can get a Lamborghini or a Ferrari if you want, but in terms of craft and precision and excellence, there's nothing kind of beats it. But I think it's not so much about, how do I say this? Let's go back. When I made this sculpture, I didn't have enough money to buy one, so I went to Hermes with my credit card and I bought one, and I made templates of it and returned it within 30 days. And it was nerve-wracking, of course. I was going to scratch up and it wasn't even a nice, it was like green, which isn't a color that I wanted, but like I said, it doesn't matter. But I was committed to returning it. If I was going to buy it, I'd get a black one, which I eventually sold this plywood one and used the money to buy a black one for my mom. And that's another form of sympathetic magic there, where I used my obsession to create something. And how do I say this? Through the work of making something and realizing every extreme detail, and this is plywood, not leather and resin, through the work, the lust of consuming something evolves or morphs or transforms into the love of making. And that's an important transformation, because sympathetic magic is something that is transformative. The origin, I'll go back to tell you more about the word, comes from post-World War II anthropologists who went to New Guinea and studied the Aboriginal people, who were really interested in these cargo planes that would drop parachutes of food, or these boxes that the anthropologists had that were powered by propane, and they'd open them and they were freezing cold inside, and food would come out of them. Or they'd have these axes that weren't made of stone, but they're made out of iron, and they could really hold an edge and chop things down. And the local people said, how do we get these iron axes, and how do we get these boxes of cold and these mechanical birds that drop planes? And the anthropologist said, well, you can't, because you don't have runways, and you don't have docks for big ships. And the local people made runways, and they made docks, and made control towers out of wood. And the anthropologist kind of laughed and said, they're never going to land on these. But sure enough, other anthropologists came to study the runways and to study the docks. It wasn't they were there to land there to deliver anything other than to see the runway. And the runway itself became the support for the original idea. I guess all to say, it never goes as planned. But magic is a thing that we can all employ without fully understanding how it works. Chanel guillotine. Thank you. Thanks. So this is probably about 1998, and I guess it's worth bragging that this is in the permanent collection of the Pompidou Center in Paris, but more to brag about the great wit and sensitivity of the French people to accept this object that represents two of their greatest exports. And the philosophy of my studio really comes from reading French structuralist theory in the 60s, and of course Japanese ethics, and of course America. But the French wit is filled with contradiction, and I think it's important that we remember that art with a political agenda is called advertising or propaganda. But in order for it to be successful on my terms, which are the only ones that really matter, you have to see both sides. And I love Chanel because it's glamorous, and in couture there are no limits to materials or construction, and I despise how it promotes body dysmorphia, both at the same time, through its advertising. And I've had people come and say to me in the same day, I love how much you hate fashion, and I love how much you love fashion, two separate people within seconds of each other, and they're both true. So it's important. So my consumer's greed expands to real estate, of course, and this is a model of unité de habitation. Le Corbusier's, one of his most important buildings, that's designed to solve the post-war housing crisis. And this is part of a large project that I would call a Gesamtkunstwerk. So another word, Gesamtkunstwerk, if you're going to come away learning two words, one of them today is Gesamtkunstwerk. It means total, Gesamtkunst, art, work. So it's another way of saying an environmental work of art or a complete story, or I like to say world building. And in Nutsy's world, I compared Le Corbusier, who built this model to solve the housing crisis after the war, with Ray Kroc, the inventor of McDonald's. And I was trying to, I went to architecture school, so I was really into Le Corbusier, is for sure the second most important artist of the 20th century. Not his art, I mean his architecture. And I was like, who's the more successful artist? Ray Kroc, who makes all this disgusting food, but somehow weirdly fed more people and killed fewer people than any other food delivery service. Or Le Corbusier, this genius mastermind of steel-reinforced concrete, whose ideas were very pure but then became corrupted by greedy developers. I don't really know. But this work was an exploration into that. And in the meantime, we got to do some wonderful things, like I got to go to Unité de Habitation in Marseille and study it. And you can see there's a video of me making my own model of it and measuring every inch and then building it again in paper. So one of the great privileges of my life is getting to educate and entertain myself. And that's kind of what it's all about. The whole world is based around a racetrack with little cars that could drive around, these excellent Kyosho Mini Z racers that were toys but sustainable. You could repair them. This is this art park. You guys want to see a video? This is a fun one.
McDonald's is a place to rock. It is a restaurant where they buy food to eat. It is a good place to listen to the music. People flock here to get down to the rock music. Rock and roll McDonald's. Rock and roll McDonald's. Rock and roll McDonald's. Rock and roll McDonald's. McDonald's will make you fat. They serve Big Macs. They serve quarter pounders. They will put pounds on you. Rock and roll McDonald's. Rock and roll McDonald's. Rock and roll McDonald's. Rock and roll McDonald's.
Thanks. Yeah, and that is a young Kate Moss. My greed and ambition for physical stuff is not limited to Earth, but includes the cosmos. Sort of my next major Gesamtkunstwerk was and has been the space program. Since 2007, we've gone on 5 major missions to the moon and Europa and Mars and Vesta and to infinity and beyond. What can I say? There are a lot of other schmucks who have made their own lem in their backyard for their high school play or for a treehouse, but I'm the only one who's made it without a central column holding it up, which means these legs are built in the same way that the ones that are on the moon are. Again, really my greatest privilege is getting to learn how these things are made and understanding what it takes to put people into another world and how much it what it really takes, the commitment. I mean, I kind of always wanted to be an astronaut, but once I started building my own space program from scratch, I realized that I think I'm more like a rocket engineer or a rocket scientist, and we can talk more about what the difference between those things are, and I'm there to help other people get to other worlds, or really to help answer the big question, are we alone? Where do we come from? Those kind of questions that science and religion both struggle to answer. But I do this all through bricolage, and that's a French word that means to build or repair with available limited resources. In the aerospace industry, we use the word kludge, or jury rigging, people say, but we use bricolage because we try and engage the culture of France and the European sensibility of repairing rather than replacing. I mean, and America uses duct tape, and it comes in every color but gold. But there is a tradition of making things, making do and getting by that's its origin comes from struggling and getting by, but also there's like a great honor to it. My space program, we go to other worlds, we really go there, but we do it through our special effects. And you can see this monitor of 50 special effects is shown. There's one of them. Here, I'll show you a movie how it all works. So you can see, thank you, thanks. If you're interested, you can watch the full-length movie on I think YouTube. But watch the director's cut. It's shorter and better. You can buy it on iTunes, but it's longer and not as good. I think we made the world's first director's cut a decade later that was shorter than the original, so I'm really proud of that. But it's worth showing you the special effect of approach. And here you can see that the camera on this little white ball, that's Europa as it's coming down towards the camera, and then you see it on the screen, on that little Sony screen, and that screen is then blown up to the large projection screen. And then these are other, that's the moon, that gray ball of duct tape. And I think it's worth sharing the story of me meeting Greg Vane, who I got a knock on the door one day after the end of the moon mission. We're getting ready for the next moon mission. I got a knock on the door, and he said, "Hi, I'm Greg Vane, and I work at Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and I'm the director of solar system exploration for planet Earth." And Greg invited me to be the informal artist in residence of the entry, descent, landing team for Mars 2012. And I worked with those guys, and they worked with me to make the space program more authentic. And when I asked how they could help me, he said, "Well, you know that gray ball of duct tape, that's the moon? Here, this one here. We can help you repurpose your lunar space program to work on Mars by covering that with red duct tape." And when I realized that these like hardcore real rocket scientists had my same understanding of how you can make the world the way you want it to be through faith, I realized I'd met my people. And one of the many things that I learned during my time at JPL was that we go to other worlds not because we fucked up this one and are looking for a new home, but to better understand our resources here on Earth. And I've subsequently been asked to fly on missions and to and around the moon, and I've recused myself because I think my place here is with my studio, my friends, and my family, and I want to explore every inch of this planet before going to others. And I think it's really important that we take care of this planet and we go to the other ones. I love that song, Whitey on the Moon, Rat Done Bit My Sister Nell, Whitey's on the Moon, because it's a protest piece about how we're not taking care of our cities, yet we're spending money on science. But I also believe that we must do both. There is no excuse. We have to take care of our planet and our communities, and we have to go to other worlds. It's just, there's no escape. Thank you. Thanks for agreeing with me. I met Buzz Aldrin once, and he said, "Yeah, Tom, but the dinosaurs didn't have spaceships." So I didn't really understand, but my space program has real spacesuits. When I asked him about condensation in the spacesuits, and he said, "Tom, your spacesuits aren't real, just cut a hole in the back." And I said, "Oh, but they are. By making them airtight and having cooling fans, we create stakes and we make the experience more authentic. By having these incredible details, we make it real. And when we do a live demonstration, it's not a performance, it's a demonstration. They're 8 hours long, and Bill Haddad is here in the front row, and he knows exactly what I'm talking about, putting them all together for so many years. And if something breaks, we stop and fix it, because science is boring. And we do these live demonstrations not as theater, but to show the aspects of the sculpture that exist in time. So here, Commander Enarino is inseminating the Martian surface with poppies from a poppy bagel. She's scraping them off into the ground. And then we have a chamber that grows the poppies into poppies, and we harvest the opium latex, because we have this idea that we were going to grow opium on Mars and bring it back to fund the space program. I think we got 1/10 of a gram of opium latex for $30,000, so it's in line with science costs. But it's more just to prove viability. Is it plausible? In 1888, there was this thing called the Berlin Conference, where European nations got together to decide how they were going to protect Africa from Europeans going to explore and capture natural resources. But the Berlin Conference really became an opportunity for the European nations to divide up Africa for its spoils. Flash forward a couple hundred years to the Outer Space Treaty of 1967, and the Outer Space Treaty said, don't bring moon bugs back to contaminate Earth, and don't bring Earth bugs to contaminate Mars. Let's not screw up other places. But because we're American imperialists, I choose to bring culture to other worlds. And in our space program, I choose the second most important cultural output of Earth, the Japanese tea ceremony, which comes originally from China and before that India. But the Japanese tea ceremony embodies all of the arts, music and architecture and culinary arts and painting and poetry and performance. So we go deep. And the symbol of our space program is the cinder block, because that's one thing that you do when you go to a new place and you show up with a Bible and a shotgun, is you knock down the round buildings and you replace them with rectangular ones. So the symbol of our space program of imperialism is the cinder block. But really, for me, all of this, whether it's the space program or the tea ceremony, is an excuse to educate myself and become masterful in this case, tea or aerospace or craft or fashion or athletics or any of the world of opportunities. So the sculptures are almost a structure, a scaffold for my exploration. And here, Commander Iannarino is preparing a bowl of tea for Lieutenant Ratanarat. You can see all of her accoutrements. There's a saying that it takes 5,000 whisking bowls of matcha to make one perfect frothy bowl, but I just put a little motor on the chasen here, so you get it about 80% right on the first try. In the space program, I made a tea bowl. Or actually, I bought a tea bowl. This one is bought. It was broken and repaired with gold. And my friend, the great artist J.J. Pete, said, "Tom, shame on you. You really should be making your own tea bowls from scratch." And I said, "JJ, I was a little busy. I've got a space program to run. I don't have time for ceramics." And I was like, "I don't even know where to begin." And he said, "Well, let me teach you." So I took a class with him at the 92nd Street Y, and I made some more tea bowls. He taught me. And I'm just going to show you, I made some more. And I made some more. And I made some more. Many, many, many more. This is a tenth of what we have, but I do it every day before looking at my phone. Where's my talks? Here we go. Yeah, so that's what I started with, and that's kind of what I ended up with. And it's a meditation. It's part of my everyday activity. When I went to JPL, also I want to brag again that most of my tea bowls wind up in Japan in tea ceremonies and collections there. The Americans don't seem to care, but there's something about the inlay. And also they're porcelain. They're not stoneware or raku fired, so they're made out of the same clay that your toilets and disc brakes are made out of. And we don't use the wheel. It's all pinch pot. So one of the few things that I learned about rocket science at JPL is that they use the same tape dispensers that we use in the studio. I thought that was a pretty cool flex, and you can buy these on Amazon for $60, but that wasn't enough, so I had to go and kind of make my own and really study it, because there was a time when $60 was too much for a tape dispenser. I don't know, that's dinner. So I decided to make my own from scratch. And if any of you out there have made your own tape dispenser or want to, I would highly recommend against not doing it. But if you do this, you'll wind up, when you make the world from scratch, you must first, if you want to bake an apple pie from scratch, you must first invent the universe. And this is the tearing saw made out of tungsten ook nails encapsulated in epoxy resin and fiberglass. And that's the hardest part of a tape dispenser, is the blade, because you want to cut the tape but not cut you if you accidentally bump into it. So there are all these contradictions, and you want the tape to tear evenly. And it was probably like the 10th try to get there, but I wanted you to I don't know, maybe it's too personal, but I want you to feel my pain. There's a giant lead weight in the bottom, so you can do it with one hand. But all of these struggles are what happens behind the scenes. true martial artist is the one who studies martial arts their whole life and never gets into a fight, and one day is attacked in a blind alley, and instead of using their ability to defeat their opponent, they simply run away. And on their deathbed, they think back like, oh, I should have kicked those guys' asses, but then they remember that their job was to learn and to teach. And it's not important that you go to other worlds, but astronauting is a lifetime commitment, just like tea ceremony is a lifetime commitment of work. And there's sort of 3 reasons that people do stuff, and they're spirituality, sensuality, and stuff. So spirituality is climbing the highest mountain, going to another world, asking the big questions: are we alone? What happens when we die? Science and religion do that, and then do the same thing in different ways. And sensuality is the rush of the rocket, the awe of the cathedral, the smell of the incense, the taste of the matcha. And then stuff is the materials, the chawan, the tape dispenser, the spaceship, the camera, the kimono, all those materials. And clearly I'm a sculptor, so I'm a stuff guy. I'm not James Bond, I'm Q. I'm the guy who makes the stuff. And that's my pleasure and privilege and expertise, but it doesn't mean shit without the rituals, without the spirituality, and without the sensuality that comes with it. You need all 3, even if you specialize in one thing. This is an early drawing I did about 6 years before I built my own first spacesuit. This is probably like 98, and I did this for Ingrid C. She asked me to do a drawing of what the future would look like, and here it's like a spacesuit, and you can see she's got like a Chanel patch on her shoulder, but all the other climate controls and urine collection device and video cameras and gold visors there. But if you look down, she's wearing these Nike boots, and it took probably because I always thought it'd be cool if you had when studying spacesuits, there was like a sock and then an inner boot and then an outer boot. And I always thought it'd be cool if you could wear a shoes over your shoes for bad weather. So I sort of designed that in '98, but it took like a decade before I was able to make it. And our astronauts now use these. Thank you. This is the Mars-Yard overshoe. And if you cut this open, you'll see inside is a Mars-Yard sneaker, and I made this for my friend Tommaso Rivellini, who's a rocket engineer and scientist. And if you Google Tommaso Rivellini, you'll see his patents, and they're things like entry, descent, landing apparatus for Mars, or deacceleration platforms for autonomous cars. He's like the deacceleration master among many things. But I made this for him to work in the Mars Yard at Pasadena at Jet Propulsion Laboratory, where they have this fake Mars surface, and they drive the rover around and get it stuck in sand, and try and get it out of the sand as a model for what's going on Mars. Another form of sympathetic magic, building a model of something so that you can practice it in another dimension. Also, so they're sneakers, so you could creep around the funding hallways in Washington, D.C. Today I'm wearing the general purpose shoe, which is sort of a best practices shoe. This is really expensive because it's the same airbag material they use on Mars, and this is kind of like a $110 sneaker that anyone can buy. And when I first started working with Nike 15 years ago, I wanted to make this sneaker, but I didn't know that you couldn't, you had to value engineer stuff, and this is knit instead of woven. It's a real triumph. I don't care if it's a sneaker or a sculpture or a video or a painting or a presentation. It's all sculpture to me. Bricolage is in everything. Even this iPad presentation where I'm able to pinch in and zoom on the fact that this is a knit upper instead of woven is an opportunity that PowerPoint and Keynote platforms do not provide. It was a real pain to get this iPad to work in this room with audio and video because it's not really meant for that. It should be a laptop, but I can't do this on a laptop. And I wanted you to see me swiping through my folders that this presentation is in itself a bricolage experience. So you might ask, like, how do I do all this stuff, right? There are many strategies. It's another lecture for like how to succeed as an artist, and maybe some of that's in the Tom Sachs guide. But one of my key strategies is channeling my intuition. And the most important thing that you have to do is learn to truly accept yourself, so you can have the courage to make just the right wrong decision. And that's way easier said than done. But one strategy that I use is called output before input. And that means every morning before looking at my phone, I touch clay. I make one of those chawans, or I write in my journal, or I study my notes, or I not study my notes, but I write new notes, so that I have access to my subconscious. I mean, think about it. When you take a psychedelic journey, you temporarily, through the use of artificial stimulants, can go to another dimension, and then if it's done right, you come back and you can remember some of the experiences. But every day, nature provides us with an opportunity to take a psychedelic experience. It ironically challenges us by giving us immediate amnesia right after. But in those few moments between sleep and consciousness, you have an opportunity to access some glimpses into your subconscious mind. Some people write their dreams down. That's totally viable. But for me, to do anything creative with my hands or my words or writing before the world of emails and social media comes in, and don't worry, it'll find you. You can't escape it. But if you can just take a moment and just make an X on a piece of paper, you can say to yourself, I'm better than this, that my subconscious mind is the most important resource that I have, and then you can move on with your day. I created this platform called I.S.R.U, and some of you have signed up, and if you're interested, you can join us. 200,000 people have done this with over 4 million submissions, and every day people do a little drawing or touch clay or build something, or they do 10 free throws, or they run out 10 minutes and run back. Some of us here in Austin did this last night at the bookstore. Or they read before bed. All these things that help us to be more human besides our phone, because the phone's not going anywhere. You don't have to worry about it. It's going to be fine without you. You can ignore it for a few minutes. I just want to leave some time for questions, but I'd want to conclude by saying that my strategy is to make the world the way, not the way it is, but the way I want it to be through sculpture. And through doing this, we've been able to like get the artwork into the best possible museums and collections. 10 years ago, we did a show here at the Contemporary Austin, the Boombox Retrospective, and it was really great, and had an amazing opportunity to meet the great people of Austin, and we've been able to make a sneaker for the sport of making sculpture. We're like an athletic team, but our art is sculpture, and that's my team. There are 15 of us that make stuff in New York City. And probably most meaningfully, that the ceramics that I make, and I'm a deep intermediate ceramic artist, not an advanced intermediate, but an intermediate, that there is enough love and appreciation in my own time for it that I have this incredible rewarding experience. And from an external standard, and external standards of excellence are not important, but that the Japanese tea masters appreciate what I do is like kind of a flex. But the important thing is the opportunity to make those things and to spend the time, because it's not about the world acknowledging you or me. It's about the time that I actually get to spend touching materials. That sensuality is the driver. And if you don't know what that is for you, your job is finding what that is for you. I want to thank you for listening, and maybe we can take a few minutes and do some questions. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So questions from Esme Carrera. Hi, thank you, Esme. And 6 others asked, do you ever design pieces with a final photograph in mind, knowing many people like us today will experience the work through images? Whew. So tough. Never the final photograph in mind, but the thing about sculpture is that it's omnidirectional. It exists in 3D. That's why it's not a sculpture. It's not a photo of a sculpture. And you can see on Instagram, I did a talk last week about a Brancusi exhibition of Brancusi's photographs. So that said, if you look through the Tom Sachs guide, I always think about one image. So I make it for 3D, but the photo is key. And that's why my relationships with my photographers are so important, because my photographers help me we decide the image together. And my photographers who've been shooting my work for 20 years, and sometimes help me understand an aspect of the sculpture when I'm making it so that it'll look good in a picture. Okay, so Driz, thank you, and 6 others. You say belief drives vision. How do you keep believing in an idea during the long stretch when the work isn't finished and no one else sees it yet? Oof. That's called faith. And that's just show up and do it anyway. And if you think that this is always fun, you're wrong. It sucks. But it's kind of like that thing about the baseball players. Like, it sucks when you strike out. But you just got to learn to live with it and not let it drag you down. And that's the key to success. Van Neistat made a really good movie about that is too long and I have to re-edit for YouTube. But it's basically about the journey of gratitude and finding appreciation and love from making stuff along the way. That is the fun of making is what it's all about. And sometimes it's not fun. You just have to keep at it. And rule number 1 of filmmaking or anything else is finish the movie. And you got to finish it so that even though the movie sucks that you made, you remember not to make those mistakes again. Because if you quit halfway, you're going to have to start over and make those mistakes again. So finish the damn movie. Yeah, really. That's like number 1, please, if you take anything away from this. And even if you have to half-ass it, finish it, just so you can say that you finished it. I'm going to combine 2 questions. I don't feel like I'm a creative person. How do I cultivate my creativity? And many creators struggle with self-doubt. What signals tell you an idea is worth years of commitment? And what advice do you have from a young designer from Ohio about to graduate and face adulthood? Okay, those are 3 questions I'm going to slam together into one answer because it's the same thing. First of all, everyone's creative. Don't use that word create. You're a creative. If someone says creatives like you, I consider that a slur. So please consider that when you talk to me and anybody else, because everyone's creative. And artists don't have a corner on creativity. My lawyer is more creative than most artists that I know. Yeah. And can I go back to those because I want to combine them? How do you find that? How do you find that thing? Well, you just, or how do you cultivate your creativity? You just do what you love, even if it's playing video games, and get so good at it that you can find a way to make it give back to you. And the easy way is money, like you could be a professional video game player, but there are many other ways. And that it's a creative output, that it's output, that you're not just passively sorting stuff. Like I love Lego free play. I don't like the kits because the kits are fun, but they're just helping us, or the next generation of children, be good servants to their Chinese overlords assembling IKEA furniture. But there's no greater brick tool than Lego for free play and for creating, and going to Bricklink and buying 100 of the same brick and making whatever you want, or taking from the pile of leftover. And so the answer is, how do you do that? Is you find something that you love, and if you don't know what that is, your job is finding things you love and keep trying things. And if at first you don't succeed, give up immediately. I can't underscore that enough. Circle back, but let your subconscious mind and time and rest process those feelings and see what from the first round you want to stick with and what you want to cut. It's not important that you keep banging your head against the wall. Don't ever do that. Ignore writer's block. Just do something else. Spoken from a place of extreme privilege, meaning that you have time to do that. You might not have time to sleep on something. You might have to get through the day, and then you just do the best you can. But this issue is in every part of your life. There are parts of your life where you will have time for this, where you will be forced to quit. And don't feel bad about that. Just let it go, and it will come back, and you will find it in your dreams. You will find it first thing in the morning. You will wake up with the answer rested. You don't have to trust me, but if you do I.S.R.U, whether it's on the app, if you do output before input, whether it's on the I.S.R.U app or just doing it for 6 days in a row, you will transform your life, and you will have access to your emotional intelligence like you've never had before, and it costs you nothing. Even if it's just making an X on a piece of paper before looking at your phone, it really works. Do you think imperfection will become the new luxury? From Maria Gonzalez. Muguruza. Yeah. I could never make something as flawed as an iPhone, maybe the best thing ever made, but Apple could never make something as shitty and fucked up as this space glove that you're looking at on the screen. And that glove shows the humanity, shows the individuality. Do you remember that time when you took a picture of that amazing cappuccino and you posted it on Instagram, only to see that 10,000 other people that second posted that image globally, and you didn't feel so special? And then how the bar was raised for finding of individuality through photography. When we watch Pluribus and we all have the collective hive mind, the protagonist is fighting with all of her life force for her sense of individuality, even though she's a terrible hack artist. She's the worst artist you could imagine, but she has incredible individuality, and she's literally willing to blow up the whole planet to save that. I don't think it's that extreme yet. I think AI is a great tool, but it's a tool like everything else. If we just use it, instead of at 90% of its capacity, 10%, it can be a huge time saver. And let's keep using it, but know how to use it and know how to use a hammer. Do both, because you still have to get through the day, and we have physicality. We are people, and we make mistakes, and that's what makes us special and human. Leah Orozco asks, and thank you, Leah, how do rules and constraints actually unlock creativity instead of limiting it? Well, there's an existential abyss that's almost impossible to deal with. All the possibilities, there's just too many things. So pick some rules and stick with it so you can do the same thing over and over. Doing the same thing over and over really helps you refine your vision. Read Solowitz's Sentences on Conceptual Art. Sometimes repetition helps you to breed depth and breadth to what you're trying to do. For another reason why sometimes you don't know what to do. So if you have the same routine every day, I'm always trying to make this chawan, and there are so many ways of doing it, and I'm always trying to make this chawan made by this guy named Chojiro, or Kichizoman Raku the First, and he made this he was a roof tile maker, a Korean roof tile maker that was abducted by Tomotoyo Hideyoshi when Hideyoshi, after he unified feudal Japan, decided he wanted to take over Korea. So he went and invaded Korea a couple times and really fucked up Korea because they're smashed between Japan and China and failed. But he managed to abduct Hideyoshi. He managed to abduct Chojiro and brought him back to Tokyo, and he was a humble roof tile maker, but he made these simple bowls with no decoration. And over 500 years ago, these simple bowls of no decoration are the most modern forms I could imagine. That's the shape that I'm always making. So every day I make that same thing, because sometimes I don't have some one brilliant idea after another. I mean, if you look at all of these things like a homemade space program and a tea ceremony master from like no experience, by the way, it's supposed to take 8 years to be a good guest in a tea ceremony, another 8 years to be a good host. I decided to do it all in 1 year. And I know that might sound arrogant, but through my dedication and commitment to that, which continues a dozen years later, I found my own sense of mastery, my own values. But doing the same thing every day puts guardrails on things and helps you just keep showing up. So if you imagine describing a homemade space program, or even like, I don't know, make my own like Nike brand called NikeCraft from scratch, no one's gonna believe in that. If you do something and like, it might sound dumb, but if you do something and infuse it with enough time and love and professionalism, it can grow to become a real thing. Like, these things sound dumb on paper, but in real life, the experience of them is rich. And that's another form of sympathetic magic, is just keep doing the same thing over and over again. And the creativity is these little tiny kernels, like grains of sand, and they build up to become mountains. And it can happen at an exponential rate. From Richard Exxon, you describe Le Corbusier as the second most important artist of the 20th century. Who do you rate as number one? Well, obviously Louis Armstrong. There's like Louis Armstrong is from another planet, and he came here from some other dimension that no one can explain, and becomes the most important artist of the time, and everything that's important about the 20th century comes from that. I love Le Corbusier, and I love Picasso and Alexander Calder and many, many others, and I love Yoko Ono and the whole world of performance art and conceptual art of the late 60s and early 70s. But when people ask me about the art that I love and I collect, it's my playlists, and the music is what moves me. Anders asked, 2 words we should learn today: Gesamtkunstwerk, which is total work of art, and bricolage, which is a building. And Gesamtkunstwerk is another way of saying world building, and bricolage is another way of saying to build or repair with available limited resources. I'm just going to take one more question, because Edward Tufte told me to end 5 minutes early. Everyone will thank you. Lisa Schaefer asks, is there often a kind of humor or irony in your work? Do you see humor as a driver when approaching an idea, or does it just appear along the way? Thanks. Thanks, Lisa. Well, no one ever got laid by boring someone to death. Humor is a way of accessing the soul. It's a way of, your friends are the ones who laugh at your jokes. Thank you for laughing at my jokes. It's how we connect. So I think it's important. And art's snobby, and people like, people don't like to laugh, but they love to laugh. Thank you. Also, we're doing a book signing right now. If anyone wants a copy of that book, I'll sign one for you. And if anyone, oh, stickers? Want stickers? All right, come to the book signing and I'll give them to you. I have this many. It's near, wait, does anyone know where that book signing is? It's on the screen there? Okay. Outside? It's right outside, it's right through there? Okay, I'll be over there in like 1 minute.